All right, on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, one more game to go, Mr. Sullivan. And how do the Avalanche handle it? Rest some guys? Do they debut a certain guy? New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter X, Locked On Avalanche, Instagram, and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, opinions, LockedOnAvalanche@gmail.com. Follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live, and subscribe to our subtext as well. Link to that's in the show notes below. When you do, chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, where we get your opinion on everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast. Make sure you're signed up for that for the postseason gets here, because there's going to be a lot of opinions flying around back and forth for these games. All right, sir. So if you're watching over on YouTube, you'll see what we got today. The Saving Sakic documentary has dropped, and we both watched it. Pretty entertaining, and we'll kind of just give our thoughts on that. The Hart Trophy, it's been a discussion all year long, but we're going to kind of look at it, I guess, a little bit differently in that it's good that there's so many guys in the mix for it this year. And should the NHL handle this a little bit differently in terms of not just having three guys kind of show up to the award season? All right, but where we are going to start today, Kyle, is obviously with the final game of the regular season for the Colorado Avalanche. That is, of course, against the Edmonton Oilers. And it's always when a schedule comes out at the beginning of the season, you look at specific matchups. You always look at, it's reading the last chapter of the book. You look at the very end, and that's an appealing matchup, but you never know. You never know, like, when you finally get there, is it going to have a lot of meaning? Is it going to have no meaning? And we're kind of at the point where it has no meaning in terms of standing. We know who the Avalanche are going to play. We don't know who Edmonton is going to play, but they're kind of locked in at their seed. So now the question is, like, how do the Avalanche handle this thing? They haven't been playing well. So do you just, go at this thing as you normally would, attack this game as you normally would? Or do you say, like, no, like, yeah, we've been going through a rough stretch, but we're still confident in our team. We'll play our regulars, but just not full speed ahead.
No, and this one, the last two games the Avalanche have put on the ice, this is one of those, if I was Jared Bednar, I would sit down in that locker room and say, you guys want to take it easy, get into the playoffs, rested, refreshed? Well, too bad. You haven't given me a hockey game in 2 games. And honestly, you let Winnipeg surpass you. You let Dallas surpass you. Dallas has locked up the Central. You could have had so much better positioning and seating. You had the Central right there at your grasp at one point. You let all that slip away. And guess what? Coffee's for closers. The Avalanche haven't been able to close. And you have Edmonton coming in. You have Connor McDavid coming into Ball Arena, coming off a back-to-back where they just closed the door on Mullet Arena forever. This is what you want. This is
really, is it?
Well, is it what do you want to do? You want to have 3 games, 3 losses going into the playoffs? How good do you feel about that? This is where you correct things, get things going. I don't see anything where I'm like, you know what, guys, those last 2 games, that was good enough. Let's just take it easy. Let's get into the playoffs. We're going to be fine. I see nothing that says fine right now.
I think you can correct things where the score of the game doesn't matter. Like, if you're going out there and you're like, these are the things that we want to work on, like our penalty kill, even our power play, take your pick, like battles against the board, like whatever you want to work on, you can work on that stuff while not really caring if you win the game. So, but I know, like, a lot of people will look at the final score and be like, oh, they lost another one, or because I mean, you said like, you know, you want, I remember how you just phrased it, but you said like, you want to work, or you want to correct things, is how you said things. You're not going to correct things at this stage of the game. You can improve, you can work on things, and you can, you know, say like, okay, this is, we got what we wanted. We're moving in the right direction with something, but you're not going to correct things right now. Like you are what you are. You don't want to be going in the wrong direction with specific things. You want to be going in the right direction. So for that aspect, I would say like, yeah, but do you need to go out and have this full on, you know, track meet of a game that you would expect between the Avalanche and the Oilers? I don't think the Oilers are going to do that. Maybe you do for a little bit to get this game started, get your legs going, get a good like burn in. But so like, say this was that Vegas game where like the first 2 periods you look really good, and then you take your foot off the gas in the third. For this game, you're like, I can see that. Like you don't need to just go all out in this game. But I get the other side of it is like, you have not been playing well, but you don't want to risk an injury either, Kyle. Like you're always, that's got to be in the back of your head too. So you're walking a fine line here with this game. And I think you can take a bite out of all the different pies here. Oh, I can't hear.
Well, to your point, Chris, the only thing the Avs don't need to work on is taking their foot off the gas. They've proven they can do that, no problem. And honestly, right now, you mentioned a track meet. The Avs need to go out, get the lead first, and hold it for 60 minutes. They need to restore faith in Georgiev. Like right now, I bet you he doesn't even feel like he could start in the SPHL. And that's no knock to a former home league of mine, but like this isn't a goalie with a mentality that he can go in there and win playoff games right now. You need to have the defense play in front of him for one game before the playoffs where he feels like, hey, I can do this. Because right now, he probably doesn't. And you want this team believing in what they're doing, and you want to go out there and end this regular season with a win. You don't need to have excuses for it's okay to take it off, because you haven't done anything to this point that warrants.
Oh, hang on.
Yep, because this Colorado Avalanche team has not done one single thing that warrants a congratulations, boys, take the night off, take it easy, let's get into the playoffs. You need to do something to restore the mojo back to this Avalanche team.
Yeah. I don't know. Like this is all recent too, right? Like, this is just how they're playing recently. It does not leave a good taste in anybody's mouth. So because of that, do you forget like, oh, you know, you do have 105 points on the season. That's, you know, that's good. You know, you have secured a playoff spot relatively earlier, you know, well, not relatively earlier, like with a good time frame left in the season, you secured a playoff spot. So you've done good things this year, but it's, do you feel how you're playing right now will continue into the playoffs? If you feel that way, then you treat this game not like it's game 82 and your seeding is locked up. You treat it like it's middle of the season and it's like a regular game. I don't know, like from the offensive side of things, I think the Avalanche feel like they're fine. I think what you'll see focus in on is definitely on Georgiev. They want him to feel like he's got at least you know, one final win under his belt heading into the playoffs, and the defense in front of him. You know, those are things where your offensive numbers don't matter. So if you can keep them off the board, play defense hard, and get Georgiev. I know it's just one game, and will that change his mindset? I don't know. Because if Edmonton's not really putting forth that much effort, how good is he really going to feel about shutting them out if that's what he does? Or do you just spin that and say like, hey, yeah, you did it. It's a hockey game. They're a professional team. They took the ice just like we did. I don't know. Like I'm interested. I just have a fear that this game is going to be like the Hall of Fame game for like NFL preseason, that after like half of the first quarter, you shut it off because it's not watchable. But I think the Avalanche will, what I think they will do, I kind of just get the vibe of all 4 lines here are going to have pretty equal numbers in ice time. I don't see Nathan McKinnon getting 24, 25 minutes of ice time. I think they'll have more by a few minutes, but I think you're going to roll 4 lines. You're going to get that going too. And I just feel like the score for them is not going to matter. If they can look back on it and say, like, we focused in on the things that we want to focus on, and we felt like they came out and did well in those regards, I think they'll look at this as a positive going into the postseason. Score be damned.
See, I there's just not an instance where you go into a game where you don't care about the score. That's why you get paid the money you do. It's why you wear the jersey. It doesn't matter what's on the line. And for half of the crowd that's going to be there at Ball Arena, this is probably going to be the last time they see the Colorado Avalanche in person, because playoff tickets, and it's going to be hard to get in. And you want to say a goodbye to those Ball Arena fans for the regular season, put a nice little bookend on the season. And you're going to feel a whole lot better with a win going into the playoffs with a couple bumps and bruises than you would with a loss 3 in a row. This will be 3-6-2. It's just not what you want with being completely healthy. You're not going to benefit a single thing from just being lackadaisical and going through it like a Hall of Fame game. The Avs need to win, because guess what you need to do in the playoffs? You need to win. Yeah. And you can't just flip a switch going off how the Avs have been playing so far.
I will say this. I'm assuming they're going to do that shirt off our back thing that they do for the final home game. That always stinks doing that after a loss.
Yeah.
You have all those kids lined up, and the players one by one are going over there, taking their jersey off, signing it, and handing it to a deserving kid. And it doesn't have the same appeal following a loss. So yeah. I hope that can be a win. So we'll see. I think there's a little truth in everything that we're saying here. Of course, if you can get all of that, if you can work on the things you want to work on, get a win, and nobody's hurt in this thing, then that's the perfect storm right there. We'll see how all this goes. As far as award season, people who vote on this stuff need to have all their votes in by Friday. And we've talked a lot about the Hart Trophy this year, so why not continue to do that? We'll do that coming up next. New sponsor here for Locked On Avalanche, and Kyle's happy with us. Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime. The scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game and pull off some bank heists and take as much of my friends' money as possible. I say that all the time when the Avs are losing. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, and charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there. Put on your game face and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play. Kyle's a big fan of this. I downloaded it recently. Pretty addictive, I have to say.
It is a mainstay in the Von Doom house.
Go get it, Monopoly Go. All right, sir. So the award season, they'll do this soon. I don't know the exact date when they're having. I think it was right before. It was during the Stanley Cup, or no, it was right before the Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. I think when they typically do it, but I don't know the date. But it's soon where these awards are going to be unveiled. Writers and voters have to have everything in by the end of this week, and the focus right now is the Hart Trophy. I think the Vezina's pretty much wrapped up. The Norris, I would say, I'm pretty confident that that's going to go to Quinn Hughes. But I think the Hart, this is what you want if you're a league. you want your MVP, like the top award, to not be wrapped up and not be fully known who's going to win it. Like a year ago with Connor McDavid, when he had that thing wrapped up by Christmas time, right? And this year, you can make an argument for a handful of guys. Obviously, Nathan McKinnon and Kucherov and McDavid and Matthews, who just ended his game and did not get to 70 goals. But hey, 69 is a very good.
It's nice.
It's nice. Matthews, sorry, Kucherov. People are saying Panarin could be in there. 100 assists for Kucherov and for McDavid. Panarin, Ranger fans want to throw him in that mix. We were saying how Hellebuck could definitely be in there. Those guys, there's 6 guys right there that you could make an argument for. And the league continues to do this thing where they only invite the top 3 guys to the awards ceremony. Do you think they need to open that up more? Do you think that because like for a fan base, like if you're a Ranger fan, and I had this discussion with a friend of mine who's a Ranger fan who thinks Panarin should be in there. And I'm like, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying like he is not a top 3 guy this year because the top 3 guys are so good. So good. And I think those top 3 guys are going to be McKinnon, Kucherov, and I think McDavid. I don't think, because of the lack of assists for Matthews, I don't think Matthews, he's great defensively. And that's where the argument can come for him. So I'm but do you think the NHL is slighting themselves by only inviting 3 guys to these award shows?
I think the NHL needs to handle this on a case-by-case basis. I don't think they need to open it up to 5, 6, 7 every year, because what are you going to have? You're going to have Sam Reinhart out there, sitting out there, knowing everyone knows there's no way, like a JT Miller, like, what are we doing? We know what that's going to be, but years like what we have going on this year, you can have 10 and a compelling case for all 10. So I think they should handle it case by case, but I feel like if you're going to bring a stable, the NHL also needs to do a good job at establishing and growing their stars, like the Connor McDavid's, the Kucherovs, the McKinnons. Like we talk every Avalanche Blackhawks game of Bedard. Mm-hmm. Give a little bit of that to your top guys. Mm-hmm. Like make them feel like what's going on right now in the world of sports with Caitlin Clark. Yeah. Like it's larger. It's growing to all forms of news media. You need to do that, especially going into your playoffs where where your established power is in your stars, and highlight these guys. When they come out, make a big deal of it. Make them feel like a cut above, because that's what this award is meant to signify.
I like that a lot, because here I am thinking like, just open it up to 5, make it 5. But I think you're right. And like, don't have a number. Because last year I keep going back to that, and it's like, okay, you didn't need to invite more than 3, because then we're sitting here being like, oh, those guys 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, they know they're not going to win it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great idea. Do it like for this year. How great is that you can invite 6 guys, maybe 7, and all 7 of those fan bases will have hope.
Yeah,
will have, because you genuinely like this is going to be a really close race. I still think it's between McKinnon and Kucherov in the end, and I think that is going to be really close. And look how like the Oscars do it, right? Like for like best picture, there's I remember times where there was, I think it was 10. I think they had 10 movies. Now that you can eliminate some of them right away, but that's still like, as far as movies go, like some people might not have heard of a movie, and it got nominated for best picture. Even though it wasn't going to win, it's still up for it. That's probably pretty good. Maybe I'll pay attention to that. Same can go for athletes and for people like, wow, like, a goalie is in the mix with all these forwards, like, who plays in Winnipeg. It just takes a different mindset when you invite more people and you give those fan bases hope and some bragging rights for it too. Even if they don't win it, they still have some bragging rights to say like, my guy was in this right till the bitter end.
And I think it's something that should be announced right in between the playoffs and the regular season. who's getting invited. And it's one of those ways, like you're talking about last year, it was like the Connor McDavid everybody knew, or like you can have, when you say Connor McDavid's invited, Nathan McKinnon, Austin Matthews, and then here's surprise fourth entrant. For those Edmonton fans that are so high up on McDavid, like it's an automatic. It makes them come down a little bit. Like, what's going on with the voting? Why is Hellebuck here? What are voters thinking? And then it gets the conversation broad. Like the Burgundy and Blue Glasses, it's Nathan McKinnon's year. The Kucherov camps. When you see it's not just a 3-horse race, why is Austin Matthews here? It's not that impressive of a season. Why is Hellebuck here? Like, what are they thinking of our guy compared to what's going on here? And it gets the conversation going, really drives all these fan bases going into the playoffs, into the award show, and it actually will make you want to watch.
Yeah, because like it's I watch it just because it's, you know, I'll watch anything like hockey related, but I feel like it's tough. It's tough to pull in a broader audience when you're narrowing it down to just those, you know, 3 guys for every award. So I don't know. I don't feel like this is something that's on the table and something that's going to happen, but I'm just surprised it doesn't. I'm surprised they don't look at this and be like, wow, or maybe they will after this year when they look at the voting for this year. And if the voting is really close between 5 guys, maybe they revisit this and be like, you know, we should acknowledge that. We should acknowledge that this was really close. And it's not just 3 guys that were head and shoulders above everybody else. Guys 4, 5, and 6 are close enough where they should be recognized too, and not just in a sheet that you release with the voting. Invite them, let them dine on fine meats and cheeses, and you know, be there for the ceremony.
You know, I'll raise you one more in closing. I say make the Hart the last award awarded in the award show. If you win the Vezina and the Norris, you get an automatic placement in the Hart conversation at the end of the night.
Ooh, a little twist there. Yeah, really? But how do you vote on that? Well, but then the voting,
with
like you need to go
with
back
that
to
logic
the voters.
Implied.
Yeah, you need to go back to the voters and say, this is who won. Now include them in the Hart.
It just it broadens the conversation, makes it a little bit more interesting, and then you stick around to watch all the awards. And it makes the Hart even more special.
Because most of the time the Hart is forwards.
Yep.
So you throw a defenseman in there, you throw a goalie in there, and I mean, it's fun. That would be fun. I doubt that would change voters' minds in any capacity, but hey, it'd be a fun thing to be a twist for sure. It'd be a twist for sure. And just to clarify, I think you were just making a point. You said something about Austin Matthews, and it's not that impressive of a season. It's an impressive season.
We're talking in the camp. Look around us. It's burgundy and blue here.
I know.
We're witnessing greatness in front of our very own eyes.
We're witnessing greatness across the league this year. It's fun to watch. I got to say that. All right, one more thing we're going to do, a documentary that was focused on the Colorado Avalanche and mainly Joe Sakic. hit the airwaves over on ESPN Plus today or yesterday if you're listening to this on Thursday. So we'll talk about it. We'll do that next. All right, let's hear from Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net, and that's starting today. Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies and their team of licensed experts, and they are on hand to help talk you through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. And Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you can trust their guidance. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That is policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. All right. Saving Sakic. We heard that it was a thing earlier in the year, and it was just released on ESPN Plus. Really good documentary, 45 minutes long. So it's not one of these like that overstay its welcome in this 2-hour long. We're just, just pulling out every minute detail, which are good, which are fun documentaries. But for this, it's an interesting story. And for those who don't know or just need a refresher, way back in when Kyle and I were just wee Avs fans, I think I was 16 years old when this happened. The New York Rangers offered Joe Sakic an offer sheet, and the Avalanche had 7 days to match that, and they didn't have the money to do it. And that's part of this documentary that kind of really stuck out to me, Kyle. We'll get into it, but Rangers offered him an offer sheet, which was 3 years for $21 million, $15 million right off the bat. And the Avalanche had to match that in 7 days. And the way they went about offering it was their ownership group was also into the entertainment business with movies, and Harrison Ford and Air Force One was released, and it was a #1 movie. They pulled money from that movie to give to Joe Sakic. So Harrison Ford and Joe Sakic will forever be linked. And this documentary just kind of gets into a little bit more detail on how all of it went down. It was a big deal. I remember this, not all of this happened, because like I said, I was 16 years old when this happened. And I remember friends telling me at school that, oh, Joe Sakic might go to the Rangers. I didn't know anything about offer sheets and Avalanche needed to match it. Like, you're not involved in that stuff when you're a teenager. But I do remember friends who I got a lot of Ranger friends growing up in New York, them saying like, oh, Joe Sakic coming to the Rangers. And I remember in my head just thinking like, oh, it's probably just like a possibility. Maybe he's a free agent. And I never had any doubt, but I never followed this closely as a kid. And then you hear about it when you get older, and it's a pretty incredible story.
Yeah, this is back in the day where you don't have social media. This is
right.
This is where you're getting everything basically off SportsCenter and your paper and or your magazine. So when you hear this in this report, you're just like, oh, Sakic's going to the Rangers. I wonder what the Avs will do. And then in one of those like 11th hour kind of things, no, he's staying with Colorado. And you're like, oh, well, good for the Avs. That's awesome. They kept him. And then once you find out how all of this happened, it's even more of a fascinating story. But in the moment, like, I was much like you. Like, you hear, I don't know how offer sheets work. I didn't know. I also forgot that was a non-salary cap regulated league.
Right.
So you could work those deals however you wanted. So you don't really think that much into it, but you're just like, oh, he's going to be playing with Gretzky in the Rangers. That'll be cool. That's going to be a super team in New York. Then you wake up the next day and Sakic staying with the Avalanche, and the rest is literally history. And it's one of those we'll have to talk about in the offseason with what if Super Joe went to New York, what the Avs would look like today. It's just crazy to think about.
It makes you wonder, man. It really does make you wonder, because the Rangers were a good team. And obviously the Avalanche were, coming off a Stanley Cup victory, so they were a good team as well. The thing, like, one of the things that I didn't know was Dave Checketts was involved in potentially being a partner with the Denver Nuggets. Like, I didn't know that. So that was like in the late 80s. He eventually obviously goes to the Rangers and starts running that team. So he knew the books. Yeah. He knew the books of the Avalanche, and he knew that. And that's stuff that you forget, Kyle. Like, or didn't, again, another thing, when you're 16 years old, you don't pay attention to the financial situation of anything, including sport teams. But a lot of teams were like the Arizona Coyotes now. Like what Arizona's going through, and not that Arizona doesn't have money, but there were a lot of teams that struggled to pay bills.
Yeah.
And he knew that. Dave Checkitz knew that. And that's kind of why he went after it, because they lost Messier. Messier went to Vancouver, so he had to fill that hole. It was a brilliant move to go after someone that's right on the level of Mark Messier and Joe Sakic. But it's incredible to me that the Avalanche were the Stanley Cup winner and lost money that year.
Yeah.
Like today, that is just absolutely unheard of with the way money flows in sports.
And the thing that really stood out to me was literally hearing the front office talking about, yeah, we purposely structured the deal this way because we knew the Avs did not have the money, and we front loaded it because we knew we were pricing them out. I'm one that has logged hours upon hours in be a GM mode in all the NHL games, and I do the same moves for the same reasons, and you feel like you're cheating the game and you're kind of getting away with it, but then you hear the front office using the exact same terminology and the exact same reasoning in why they do what they do, and him saying it's not illegal, we're just doing what we had to do. We knew we were going to get him. You heard what would happen if the Avs did match or he walked away and you're going to lose all those draft picks. Like, there's a lot to gamble and juggle with there, but to hear a front office that you really don't hear comments out of nowadays, like how things are run, to hear the behind the scenes, it's fascinating.
Well, Charlie Lyons was saying how I don't think this was on the documentary. Go listen to 32 Thoughts. 32 Thoughts had him on Wednesday's episode, and they kind of do kind of an extended interview. And he kind of admits that this whole Sakic thing really kind of made us realize we shouldn't be running a sports team. We're in the entertainment business, but not this entertainment. And then eventually it was sold, and Kroenke's now own it. And he's like, and they know what they're doing. Not admitting that they didn't know what they were doing, but it was more or less like, it's a really good interview. It is more or less just like, we probably should hand this over to pros. He leaned on Pierre Lacroix like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Like if it was not for Pierre Lacroix, like we wouldn't be in the situation we were in with the Colorado Avalanche. Because not only was Lacroix knew what he was doing, but he kind of groomed Sakic to kind of take over for him. So they had the right people in the right place, which thank God for that. Because if not, they wouldn't have matched this. And they had those conversations of, should we do this? And the other thing that was I didn't even think about, a big reason, well, not I don't say how big it is, but a reason why they decided to eventually match it and keep Sakic was they had just lost to Dikembe Mutombo.
Yeah.
From the Nuggets. Dude, like that stuff I don't even put together. I don't think about basketball at all for much of anything right now, but that was a big loss to the city of Denver. He was the guy, and they had just upset I think it was Seattle when Denver was the 8 seed, and then he went to Atlanta. So the city was like, we're going to lose another top guy. And I think it was like the mayor or something like stepped in and was like, let's make this work. So stuff like that I loved.
And I love like watching this documentary in 2024, hearing them talk about, they had all this money locked up in Patrick Roy, all this money locked up in Peter Forsberg. They didn't know if they were going to be able to afford Joe Sakic. As we go into a year with all this money locked into Gabe Landeskog, all this money locked into Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Ranta has got a deal coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. But what they say, Patrick was
it was like $4 million. $4 million. Yeah. I was like, ooh, what a steal.
He's only making about 500,000 more than Alexander Georgiev this year.
Inflation is crazy.
Now, imagine, because if the Avalanche didn't match this, they would have gotten the Rangers' next 5 years of first round picks. Most likely late first round picks.
Yeah, exactly.
And how the Avalanche would have been after losing Joe Sakic, still would have been a good team, but good Lord. I mean, Joe Sakic in the mix. I would have liked to see what Pierre Lacroix did to fix that. You lost Joe Sakic. Or I would have loved to see him work his magic to replace him as best as he could. But man, you would have had 10 first-round picks if you kept them all. I think you would have had a lot of leverage to deal. So I would have loved to see who they would have brought in, because you had a lot of first-round picks to deal with.
No, because look at what the current state of the team is now. What we're talking about, the first two segments, is Nathan MacKinnon, this team, the previous cup. Like, we wouldn't be here if it isn't for Joe Sakic in the front office, taking over for Lacroix, being under his wing and carrying on with his team. If he went to the Rangers, they've changed ownerships. There's been president roles. There's been, what if his loyalty would be with the Rangers, winning a cup with Gretzky? Like, who would be in the front office now? What would the Avalanche look like? The Nuggets? Would that be Mutombo part 2?
It's just those questions that you don't know. So much could have gone differently. And then the other part of it is the movie. They wanted to move the movie. It was a July release date, but it was the same. There was one other movie, and Titanic, and it was coming around the same time, and they wanted to push it back to November. And Harrison Ford was like, "That's not happening." In his just stoic, monotone, I can just hear him saying, like, "No."
Gets on the phone. I have a bad feeling about this.
So if that happened, then what do you do? Like all of these things, just, it's amazing how, what I'd love to see if they didn't match it, and you get those 5 first-rounders, the Steve Dangle trade tree.
Oh,
for, even though it's not a trade, but you just how that worked out, it'd probably still be connected to it somehow, some way.
It'd be the trade forest.
Oh my God. So just all those things just coming together are just pretty amazing. And just the fact that it's for Joe Sakic, the face of this franchise, and will always be. And there's not that little asterisk or in his career where he didn't play for Quebec/Colorado. So it's good. It's entertaining. It's fun to watch and remember something that will probably never happen again in the history of sports. I don't think anybody's going to pull movie money and give it to their star player so he doesn't go to a different franchise. Pretty incredible.
It's fascinating, and it's worth a watch.
Definitely. All right, that is going to wrap it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow talking about this final game, which I didn't mention it when we were talking about if the Avs should take it easy or not. Kovalenko could possibly play in this game. Could potentially play in this game. We'll see if it happens, and maybe someone gets a rest. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.